here we are today with Paul Boldy, Director, Head of Hospitality Futures at Benoy. Welcome to our podcast.
Thank you.
Paul. What really in hospitality is that drives you the most?
We had a joke internally the other week. We were in a coaching session at work and in the office, and we all had to write down something on a piece of paper. That's something that inspired us and got us out of bed in the morning. And I was the last person going around the table, and they were all saying on the family and my great team and passion, and I wrote hotel data. So I think sometimes the point there is that as humans we're very good at the sort of ABC logic of thinking, but we never really challenge ourselves to go from A to C. And I think that as designers trying to push the envelope in terms of hospitality, it's not been reactive to the market. It's been proactive in the market in terms of, we come up with designs that play to the experiential requirements of guests.
Welcome to our podcast.
Thank you.
Paul. So here we are today with Paul Boldy, Director, Head of Hospitality Futures at Benoy. Could you start by telling us a bit about your journey and what led you to focus on the hospitality futures?
Yeah, so I've been in the Middle East for I think I'm in my 21st year.
Wow.
So I started in fit out, hotel and retail fit out. I did a lot of work for Jumeirah. A few years went by and Jumeirah approached me and said, "We like your style, we like your way of working." So I was director of projects for Jumeirah for a few years, which was just a great honor and a great position to be in. I think there's something about, I always say this to people, there's something about hospitality that gets under your skin. When you work in hospitality, you're either on property or you're in behind the scenes. There's just something about it that I love the energy, feel the energy on a property. So that was it. That was my journey. I'm hooked, and I'm into hospitality. So I worked on the operator side, back into consulting, and then back to operators again. So pre-COVID, I was with Wyndham Hotels and Resorts as regional manager for architecture, design, and construction. So again, it was one of those positions that was a great place to be. It was what I've been looking for since I left Jumeirah, and so yeah, I think that really grounds you in terms of, especially working in hotel design, grounds you in terms of what the operators look for, how hotels work from the inside out. So yeah, really just something about the industry that I like. And I've always been very analytical in my approach, very data driven. Data is a bit of a passion of mine. So, that was another aspect that hotel is rich in data. It's rich in acronyms and it's rich in data, and so that allowed me to sort of play about with, how do we shape projects using data, using a data-driven approach to things.
I mean, it's an interesting mix from the understanding of data, then you've had the experience with operators, and then on the design side, what really drives you? As like when we talk about hospitality, I can feel that you're even now very passionate after spending so much time. What really in hospitality is that drives you the most?
We had a joke internally the other week. We were in a coaching session at work and in the office, and we all had to write down something on a piece of paper. That's something that inspired us and got us out of bed in the morning. And I was the last person going around the table, and they were all saying on the family and my great team and passion, and I wrote hotel data. So by the time it got to me, I felt a little bit embarrassed, but I said, "Well, look, I love that side of it. I love being able to sort of analyze data, being able to sort of apply that to what we do. And I'll use a really good example. Is that when I do a lot of renovation strategy. Renovation strategy is my real passion, PIPs and renovation strategy. So I developed software to analyze renovation budgets and all the metrics associated with it. And one of the things for me was always about people not. You would look at hotel renovation typically, but you would never look at the guest reviews. You would never look at the sentiment score. You would never look at NPS and then find out what the real issues are. real issues are hot water and AC, but you'd install new carpets, new walls, and a new coffee machine, and you'd completely miss the point. So this started me on a journey thinking, well, there's more to this to be able to, I could justify an ROI in a renovation project by improving efficiency, improving staff efficiency. If a room takes longer to clean post-renovation, then one of a number of things happens. It either doesn't get cleaned and the asset depreciates, or it does get cleaned and the operator incurs additional cost. So thinking about all these aspects when you're planning work and ultimately, even if it's new build, thinking about efficiencies and all these things. So so that's my passion. That's what really sort of.
You come from design background as such. Like, have you studied design or architecture?
No, I'm a project manager by profession. I'm a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Building, and so in my 20-year career in the UK before I came to the Middle East, I was in main construction, modular construction, and so it was really just moving to the Middle East 20 some years ago and working for the likes of Jumeirah that really fueled that side of it. So yeah, I'm working for an architect now, and I'm heading up design. But design, I guess I'm a frustrated architect. I always remember being a kid and spending my summers in an architect. My dad had a friend who was an architect, and I'd spend my summers in his office looking at drawings and going through. So I knew I was always going to do something in design, but went into project management and found hospitality through an opportunity, and then sort of really specialised in terms of data-driven design and real passion around that. So
interesting. So what is your role as head of hospitality futures entail, and how does it shape Benoy's approach to design in the hospitality industry?
So I think what I've been working with Benoy for a number of years, on and off, and I'd helped them with sort of hospitality-related specialisms, and they've always been a very data-driven. That's their niche, not a niche, but it's their passion as well. So there's a shared alignment there. So I have two roles. One role is with Pragma, which is the consulting part of the business, if you like. Very strong in retail, travel, so airport planning, retail planning for large shopping malls, and so on and so forth. And so I brought in the hospitality advisory part of that. So from a mixed-use development now, we're seeing a lot of traction. And as Benoy, we're doing a lot of master planning and mixed-use development. So we're able to model that from an investment point of view, from a market study point of view. When I look at my role within Benoy, obviously we're a global practice from Hong Kong, Shanghai, Singapore, all the way to Miami and everywhere in between. So as a global practice, we do a lot of hotels, but I think we've done a lot of hotels, but we never sort of really pushed the envelope in terms of how we become the thought leader, how we become the center of excellence around hotel design. So like I say, when we brought this all together, it's just a really great opportunity to bring in, I guess, my expertise in terms of hotel planning and design and operation. And so whenever we've got projects in the studios, then I will get involved in design reviews and looking at that to make sure that, we de-risk the design. Oftentimes we're doing pre-concepts and concepts where we don't have an operator on board. And it's very important for us to be able to say, well, we know this will work. We know the chain scale, we know what market we're looking at, so we can craft the design to try and de-risk the process if an operator comes in at a later stage. So it's really just applying that hotel hospitality expertise within the design teams. And we have some great hospitality architectural teams, and I think we've just not shouted about it enough in the past. So this was an opportunity to sort of bring someone in like myself, just to really push and harness that message, push content where we can, and our expertise. So yeah.
And do you travel extensively as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, these days it's a lot easier to do things online, but I'm a great believer in face to face. I mean, with your conference here, it's great. Just amazing to I bumped into a few people I haven't seen for a while, and just so it's always great to do that. There's always the sort of random interactions, but we do travel. I was in LA at the end of January for the Alice conference, the hotel conference. So there's obviously the hotel conferences that it's important for us to be seen at, and we're working with big developers, we're working with a lot of the operators. So again, it's just building those relationships, because you've been in the Middle East for any length of time, you realize that people are the connections. People like to work with people, and so I think those human interactions rather than corporate interactions sometimes are very important. So yeah, I'm back and forth to London, to the studio. It's a main studio in London. A few times, just working with the teams on design reviews. We're doing a lot of work in Saudi at the minute and in the UAE. So it's great that we're here. We have a small team here, but we're growing that team just off the back of some of the really great projects that we're doing in Saudi at the minute. So yeah.
Now, like we were discussing earlier, and also through my presentation, I also mentioned the hospitality industry is evolving so rapidly. What are some of the key design trends that you see is defining the future of luxury and lifestyle hospitality spaces?
Well, I think there's two elements there. I think it's experiential, and people have used that term for a long time. But I guess the guest value proposition has changed. You can't, it's interesting. We went from an area of sort of revenge tourism, revenge travel, to sort of revenge against the tourists. We saw the sort of big cities uprising and say we don't want tourists. So look, it just shows that the importance of community engagement. So for me, I think, and what we're seeing within hotel design, both at a luxury scale and a lifestyle scale, is just how hotels interact with the community. They're becoming a place for to eat, rest, play, stay, entertain. But at the heart of that is how properties sit at the heart of communities, to be able to engage with those. We're seeing a lot more drive towards flexible space, adaptable space, the hyper-personalization of the offering, to be able to, mold to the environment that you want it to be. If you want to work from the room, or you want to work from the lobby, you want to stay for dinner, you want to stay for the live entertainment, you want to work out, just want a place to chill and relax, and wellness is a big focus. So I think hotels are going away from just being a bed and a place to eat. They're becoming centers of communities, and I think obviously with different chain scales, from luxury to, and lifestyle can be luxury, lifestyle can be mid-scale, it can be economy. So that's an interesting one, is that I think lifestyle and boutique are words that maybe 10, 15 years ago we didn't understand what that meant in hospitality. Now I think it really means just it's a product that gives you the experiential component, to be able to sort of, you feel that it meets with your aspirations as a traveler, or it meets with your aspirations in terms of sustainability and circular economies in hotels are a big push for us. Used to be an element that was we'll try and do LEED, or we'll try and do BREEAM, or we'll try and do something along those lines. It was a little bit of greenwashing. I think now with green finance initiatives through in terms of development, it's become, and rightly so, it's become at the center of what we need to do. Hotels are a big user of utility, and so anything we can do. The other aspect of it as well is when I used to do a lot of renovation, the cycles used to be 5 years soft refurb, 10 years hard refurb. Now it's 10 or 15 years for a soft refurb. But I think circular economies are bringing a lot back in terms of being longevity and materiality of choice, to be able to, and if hotels are more adaptable, then they're more future proofing is a bigger element, so that they become relevant for longer. And then I think with the right material choice, then you become you have a longevity in the product, which again we can justify a great ROI, because we start to build that into the project investment models as well. So.
Well, with the passion you have for data, tell me some interesting finds that you've had.
So the whole premise of my approach to data was always around the budget.
Okay.
So I've told this. If I've told this story once, I've told it a million times. But it really resonates with me that, you know, if you're an owner and you want to renovate your hotel, you would say, what would you do? You probably reach out to an interior designer, and then I would come and I would say, what's the budget?
Yeah.
And you say, okay, 20 million. It's either what you have burning a hole in your back pocket, or you've thought about it and this is where you can be. So I go away and I design something, and we say, this is great, I love it, let's build a mock-up. We build a mock-up, it goes to market, and market says 24 million. So you think, okay, what do we do now? So we have the dreaded value engineering, which has nothing to do with the value and nothing to do with anything. But we'll do it, we'll go through it, and we compromise everything, and we change, and we get there. So I designed my software to say, well, in 30 seconds, I can save you 6 months of value engineering, and you can spend the 24 million because you understand the metrics aligned to that budget. You understand what you were looking for in terms of your investment. You understand what the operator was looking for in terms of aspiration on occupancy or ADR or positioning. How would we change that to meet that? So it's really about just understanding. So for me, there's a lot of metrics within you know, these decisions that are never really considered at the outset. You know, phasing metrics. I mean, if I said to you, could you have 0.5% less on your IRR? Could you have, you know, 6 months longer on in terms of your payback aspirations or your asset strategy? And you say, yeah, okay. Well, we just saved $300,000 on lost time, because the biggest unaccounted for cost on any project like this is always time. You know, speed to market. You know, people, they look at the number and the budgets, but they don't think about, well, we're supposed to open Q1, but we're now opening, you know, Q3 because we lost 6 months in trying to save ourselves 4 million off the budget. So yeah, that for me is always the really interesting part about the numbers and just the interconnectivity of you know, ADRs and IRRs and the ROI and the phasing strategy. Yeah.
So this is your tool.
It's and you know what, I people always say, well, where do you get the data from? And I say, well, it's a mindset, it's a methodology, it's a way of thinking about how you would look at it to try and break this down into a very granular way. You know, I mentioned earlier about the restaurants, the all-day dining. Yeah. You know, if you look at a 200-seat all-day diner, and then you look at this, we're only busy at breakfast, and we've only got this amount of footfall through the restaurant internally and externally, and we're running at 20% occupancy in terms of where we should be in terms of number of covers. So you think, okay, well, we don't need this number just to serve the breakfast. We can find other ways of doing this. So we can half the GFA, and conversely, half in the GFA of the restaurant impacts the kitchen, impacts the storage, impacts the loading dock. It impacts the staffing. It's a whole knock-on effect. So, you know, we could save GFA and cost and improve efficiency, and we come up with another idea of flexible space that we can use. You know, a better use of that space and better activation of that space. So, yeah, it's a really interesting approach.
The sustainability is no longer a buzzword. It is a necessity. So how is Benoy integrating sustainable design principles into the hospitality projects?
I mean, there's a lot of green initiatives come from, you know, servicing strategy, you know, in terms of the plant and equipment and the way that we look at how we integrate close control. Where I think where we impact it, obviously from a built environment point of view and you know, built envelope point of view is our, you know, facade teams working with the architectural teams to understand, you know, minimizing solar gain or improving, you know, the aspect of the property that would negatively or positively impact that building. And then obviously materiality, choice of materials, you know, trying to look at supply chain, look at locally available, you know, materials. So we obviously we're master planners, architects, interior design and landscaping. So each of these elements plays a part. You know, even the landscaping plays a part in terms of, you know, shading and reducing temperatures and you know, improving humidity or you know, dehumidifying in certain environments. So I think we've all got a part to play in this, and I think, you know, think too often in the past it was the lead checklist, and it is, it's where can we get the points, where can we do, without really having a sort of fundamental approach to saying we don't need a checklist. This is just our way of working. And I think being able to sort of have these aspirations as a project, then it sort of impacts the rest of the multidisciplinary teams around that, from fire life safety, MEP, services design, definitely.
Now, how is the technology, including AI and the digital personalization, influencing guest experiences and hotel design today?
I think, again, there's a tie-up between this sort of personal space, this flexible space, and what we can learn from data and AI. We've all had the post-visit, sentiment score analysis and that hotels send out. There's a reason they do that, and it's not always just to get a better score on TripAdvisor or whatever it may, or Booking.com. A lot of that is really valuable data in terms of feedback dynamically for the property. There's a lot of data that we can gather when a guest is on property as well through their choices. And I think where technology and AI sort of go hand in hand, the better the technology, the better the BMS, the GRMS, the PMS, the more data that we can gather from the systems. It helps us to have closer control. So we closer control utility costs and things like that. And but equally we can gather data that then can be used with artificial intelligence to then try and map changes in the property. I always once had this aspiration many years ago. I won't say before AI. I wasn't trying to pioneer anything, but with my renovation models, to be able to say there must be a way that we can get data from the BMS to be able to say, look, this fan coil unit in the bedroom is failing more often than not. Then therefore we need to, there's a program in place to look at refurbishment or repair of equipment and what have you. So I think that integration is obviously shaping the guest journey, because in a way it should be seamless. It's not something that I think guests are going to go, oh right, yeah, I didn't realize the lights turned on when I walked in the room, and it's just exactly the right circadian rhythms for me, and I woke up feeling really refreshed. You almost want that to be part of of why you feel comfortable as a guest in a property. So I think that integration, it needs to be as seamless as possible. But I think where we're trying to embrace that as designers is to be able to use that to our advantage, to be able to craft more dynamic spaces, going away from just the oblong bay and what that means, to how could we do something different? How could we adapt that space to accommodate, larger families, larger groups, smaller groups, working space, It's that sort of thing. I think that that data analytics allows us to sort of understand better where the guest drivers are for design and staying in hotels. So yeah.
In your imagination, what's the most futuristic hotel that you can describe?
My imagination is all data driven, so I don't know whether it'd be very interesting for most people. But look, I think there's a lot of cliches, isn't there, in hospitality? Home away from home and everything else. But so I guess you'd have to look at why somebody was traveling to a certain area or a certain. So I think for me, it's this experiential thing. If you took a room of the future, it's you want to immerse yourself in that place that you want to be. If you want to go on safari in Kenya, how can that space interact with that experience? Do you want to stay in a hotel and then go out through the day and then you have the experience and then you go back and sleep in the bed at night? You would want to bring that whole travel experience together, sort of. So I don't know whether that's. I would say that. I would say it's more an immersive, experiential, something that would adapt to your own personal environment, I think. Or your
it makes sense.
Choices.
It makes sense. Yeah. So, with Middle East positioning itself as a global hospitality hub, what unique opportunities or challenges that you see in the whole designing process in the region?
So I'm a member of the ISHC, the International Society of Hospitality Consultants, and it's an American organizer, founded as an American organization, but we've now got a lot of members around the world. We had our annual conference in Dubai at the end of last year, so a lot of my American colleagues came over to Dubai, saw Dubai for the first time. We're just blown away by the level and scale of luxury and service quality and everything else. And actually, one of the things that we said, we had somebody from Dubai Tourism. We had Mr. Gerald Lawless, of course, who came and did a talk for us, my old boss's boss from many years ago. And it was really interesting because people who lived here, we talked about the leadership, we talked about the vision, we talked about how amazing it is and how privileged we are to live in this place. So I certainly think from a hospitality point of view, there's so much opportunity to as you were talking about, what is the hotel of the future? What does it mean? And I think that really is the exciting thing about this region. We've seen what the developments in Saudi and right, some of it may seem very, very futuristic, but there are learnings there, and you can see the testing materiality, the testing technology, the pushing the boundaries of what we can possibly do. Hotels and hospitality have been rooted in very traditional. We've got to have a big lobby. We've got to have a big space. We've got to have a grand entrance. We've got to have a chandelier. We have rooms in a restaurant and a gym. So how do we change that model? And I think there's probably nowhere else in the world at the minute that is challenging those norms to say, okay, we want the big names and the operators, but we'd like you to challenge your product and challenge your services to elevate that and do something completely different. So yeah, I think that's the real excitement, I think, and it comes from the top, doesn't it? So yeah.
So we the concept of immersive experience, which we've also been talking, is gaining a lot of traction, definitely in hospitality. Now, how do you see this translating into design?
I think it's as designers, it's being able to understand, what people want. It's being able to understand what that means in terms of, and sometimes we need to sort of detach ourselves from those norms. And there's a very nice gentleman that's no longer with us, but a chap called Edward de Bono, who was a lateral thinking expert. And I went to one of his talks in Bahrain many years ago, and he said, okay, let's design a restaurant. So he said, okay, write 10 things that you would find in a restaurant. So you wrote tables, chairs, kitchen, food, menus, And he said, right, okay, take off number 2, 7, and 9. So I took away food, I took away chairs, and I took away the kitchen. Design me a restaurant now. So you go, okay, well, I've got no food, so I've got to bring my own food. There's no chair, so I'm standing up. There's no kitchen, so maybe I've got to cook at my thing. So all of a sudden now I've got a concept that I would never have thought about if I hadn't have done it. So I think sometimes the point there is that as humans, we're very good at the sort of ABC logic of thinking, but we never really challenge ourselves to go from A to C. And I think that as designers trying to push the envelope in terms of hospitality, it's not been reactive to the market. It's been proactive in the market in terms of, we come up with designs that play to the experiential requirements of guests, because we understand the fundamentals of hotel operation. We're able to craft something that we know will be easy to operate, but equally will deliver a really great guest experience. Community-centric, sustainable, experiential, technology integrated, connected. There's all these aspects that come together to create really great experiences and really great products. I think, yeah.
The lateral thinking exercise you mentioned is quite
fantastic.
amazing.
So this book, he published a book called 6 Thinking Hats, and many others, but it's a great read, and it's a great. He was a great expert in terms of getting people to think differently. He was a lateral thinking expert. So, but I always use that example with the restaurant because I think It is great.
It is.
Another great one was, he said, why are umbrellas designed, with the wet on the outside? Why are they not designed the other way up? So they catch the water and they funnel the water down, it sort of, and it funnels down the handle and comes out there. And then when you close it, it closes the wet side on the inside. So he's obviously spent many a night trying to think of some of these things, but it's just an example of, how would we, to your point earlier, how would we design a hotel room differently? To offer something that maybe would give you a different experience. There's always the difficulty that there are basics requirements that you need, but I think it's how you deliver that experience is what creates memories and gets people to service, environment, experience. They all count for something, don't they? So
what's the one piece of advice that you would want to give the hoteliers or developers and designers that are looking to future-proof their hospitality projects?
Wow, good one. Here's a chance for me to say use our services, but I don't know. But look,
you can.
Yeah, I think it's understand. It's really understand the metrics for success. What does every developer has a different asset sort of strategy, a different threshold in terms of where they're looking from in terms of investment. Most developers have mixed assets in terms of within their portfolio because they know that some perform better than others. Hospitality sometimes is a passion project, and we see a lot of that in the region, which is great, But at some point, those need to deliver a return on investment. I think it's really understand the granularity. There's a lot of people that would take a sort of high level 30,000 foot approach to investment, and we're building a hotel, so this is what we need to. There's granularity, flexibility, experiential. Those are the elements that craft a really, really great product. And getting with the right operator. Quite often, we see properties that have missed the market. They've not spent enough time in terms of the demand analysis and the demographics and what it could possibly be. And that doesn't mean to say it's the existing, it's the future trends, and where, when you look at big master plans, and we're involved in a lot of master planning. Half of that is a symbiosis of how the retail interacts with the residents, interacts with the hospitality. What's the future planning look like? What does the future city look like? I did some work with a company last year, and we were talking about the future role of architects, and the future role of architects is really going to be the guardians of data. Because with smart city initiatives, what we're doing is we're producing a lot of data. There's a lot of active redevelopment and refurbishment and reuse of assets that we need to embrace from a sustainability point of view. We can't just keep building new. We've got to look at adaptive change. And I think the more that we incorporate that at the outset is the better future we've got in terms of, being able to craft projects with the right data, the right demographics, the right demand, the right flexibility to be able to deliver projects that have longevity, that they're not here today and gone tomorrow. And so yeah, that would be
But is there any particular city or a region that sort of surprises you with how far they are when it comes to the futuristic approach to hospitality?
I guess the obvious answer is what's happening in Saudi.
Okay.
I think some of those road projects are really pushing the envelope in terms of what I used an analogy. I was doing some work on the new Muqab and the Maraba in Riyadh, and you look at that, and actually some of the materiality doesn't exist. Some of the materials don't exist to be able to deliver that vision, which is a phenomenal thing, because you think, well, we've got to create, we've got to develop something. So I think there are obviously aspirations in the kingdom to push that side of things. So I think that is a really exciting thing. But I think closer to home, looking at what Dubai has done in terms of consolidating its position in terms of tourism and hospitality, and not just that, but the level of service and the detail. So So I'm a little bit biased, but you know, Dubai and Saudi for me are the ones that, you know, still after 20 odd years, still to surprise me in terms of what we can deliver from an asset point of view, but also from a hospitality service point of view, definitely.
And do you go to schools and teach as well, Paul?
So we have a group internally within the company. So we have a hospitality group that we've set up to get people interested in what I'm doing for the business now and that side of things. And so I've done quite a few talks at interior designers on the use of metrics in design and how metrics impact design and design impacts metrics and things like that. But no, it's something that I would love to do, honestly, because I'm you can tell I'm a little bit passionate about
Absolutely,
hospitality, hospitality, and that message. So I think it's
no. I still wonder what keeps you going even after. I mean, you can still go, but not with this level of passion.
A good spreadsheet.
Yeah.
No, a good spreadsheet for me. If I can take good hotel data and make something really special from it, it's like I say, there's just something about hotel and hospitality that I did some work for IHG in the Kingdom last year, and I was doing some property improvement planning for them, and I spent a lot of time on property there with young Saudis in the hotel leadership, and we were chatting about this, and I was telling them about the under the skin thing and what, but you can feel the energy, you can feel the. I don't. It's not me particularly, but when you walk onto a property and that. You know, the way that the GMs and the XCOM teams craft that sort of, you know, that family and that energy and what have you. There is something quite special about that I really don't, you know, you really probably don't get in many industries. So that's the buzz for me. It's front of house, back of house. You know, I've seen my fair share of both, but it's just that whole engine, that whole environment, I think is really quite unique.
Well, you caught me at the first sentence itself when you mentioned inside out.
Yes.
So that
that would be my advice to it. Sorry, going back to the developer question. Design from the inside out, not from the outside in. We all get used to, oh, this is a beautiful building, but it never works properly as a hotel, or it's this. But so that for me is the fundamental. You make the operator's life easy, he'll make money for you as a developer, and you'll make money in turn. So,
Well, that sums it up fantastically. And Paul, thank you for a fantastic conversation. I enjoyed every bit of it.
Likewise.
And I wish you all the best with all your endeavors and to you, the software that you also have. I will look forward for future conversations with you.
Yes, absolutely, inshallah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.